Joining me now to discuss this further is Hassan Soweto. He's the National Coordinator Education Rights Campaign. Hassan, good to see you. And, some analysts believe Africa's education and training programs have suffered from, is already suffering from low quality teaching and learning and inequalities and exclusion at all levels. What do you make of this?
Well, I think that analysis is very correct, because when you look at the ongoing strike in Nigerian public universities and the strike by teachers and students in Zimbabwe, it just demonstrates that many countries in sub-Saharan Africa are suffering from the same ailment, which is that over the past decades, governments in this part of the world have failed, to invest in public education, to utilize the wealth and resources, of those countries, to actually be able to provide quality education to all members of society. And when you look at these two countries, Nigeria and Zimbabwe, for instance, you see that these are countries that are resource rich, that have the kind of wealth which, if utilized appropriately, would have ensured that you have a very thriving public education. But because of the greed, of the political leaders and the capitalist system, which exists in both countries, to find outcomes that are completely at variance, with the capacities of these countries. Zimbabwe is a much more disastrous manifestation of this point I'm trying to make. It's a basket case of crisis. You have had over the past few years, the phenomenon of hyperinflation as a result of the consistent mismanagement of the economy by the Mugabe ZANU-PF capitalist dictatorship. And even after Mugabe's existence in 2017, the government that took over has only continued with the same anti-poor and anti-education policy. And that is why what we are seeing now in Zimbabwe. In Nigeria, it's also the same example, so that we are at a turning point, in Africa, where we need to begin to look at alternative means of developing our society, utilizing the wealth that our economy, actually has, to be able to provide public education and basic services for our people. And as I always say, it's very clear that the only way out is to have a socialist run economy, based on collective ownership and democratic management of the wealth of Africa. If we have this, there'll be no reason for university teachers in Nigeria to have to go on strike. Before
let me jump in here, Hassan. And according to a UNDP report, only 4 out of every 100 children in Africa are expected to enter a graduate and postgraduate institution, compared to 36 out of 100 in Latin America and 14 out of 100 in South and West Asia. Now, so what's the role of funding in education and in Africa?
It's very crucial, very, very critical. And this is not just a conclusion that we have just reached now. If you look at the history of the different African countries, you realize that the subsisting infrastructures in public education that you continue to have today were actually put in place at the period, before and immediately after independence. When the governments and regimes you had in those periods were motivated, by patriotic need, to ensure that those countries were developed. And apart from that, you also had, at that period in the 60s and 50s in Africa, ideologically driven individuals, who came to governance, wanting to ensure that they utilize some of the resources, not all anyway, but some of it, to actually build a thriving economy. In Nigeria, for instance, you had, the examples of the Awolowo and the Action Group, and you had the Zikis movement, in another part of the country, both of which rested on very vibrant ideas, even from a bourgeois point of view, of ensuring that resources, society at that period were utilized to provide public infrastructure, basic services, not just in education, but also in healthcare, and in many parts of Africa, it was the same situation. But what do we have today? Since the 70s and 80s onward, we have had an ideological shift, in Africa, and you have had, following that, regimes that have come to power who have completely, embraced neoliberal philosophy of governance, which is based on privatization, which is based on commercialization. And that is why you see what you are seeing today, whereby, despite the immense resources that are available to fund public education, in many countries of Africa, there appears to be none, which is funding education up to even 15% of their national budget. And that is why you have the outcomes.
I'd like to thank you for your time again. Apologies for butting in. Many thanks for speaking with us on this.
Thanks for having me.
Hassan Soweto.